Second Chances, 23 Steps to Transforming Adversity into Opportunity by Chuck Gallagher. Preface. It was impossible on that August day of 1996 to know what the future had in store as I took my first steps out of prison. The world had changed and so had I. Yet in that moment there was no way to predict the future. Like anyone, I had my fears and apprehensions. Entering the world as a convicted felon was a new experience and one that I could not have prepared for a decade or two earlier, other than by not making those unethical, illegal choices. The future that was cloudy then is crystal clear today, now some 20 years later. I have seen the power of second chances and know with virtual certainty that every choice has a consequence. Poor choices led me to prison. A different set of choices, however, has led me to places I never imagined going, meeting people I never imagined meeting, and doing things I never imagined doing. From those first days selling cemetery property door to door to becoming a senior vice president in a public company within 10 years of my release, I came to understand that consequences aren't all bad. Our choices create our future. My prison experience was created by my past choices, so it stood to reason that positive, more empowering choices should lead to something outstanding. They did. If you want a bright future, you must make choices that can get you there. Notice I didn't say that reaching the successful future you envision would be easy or quick. Likely, it will be neither. One positive choice at a time built on another, however, will provide the foundation needed to create the outcome you desire. Rarely does a week pass now when I don't receive a call from someone who is facing their prison release asking, "What do I need to do to find my second chance?" Often, before I have a chance to answer, they proceed to tell me how hard it is and how life is stacked against them. No one said life would be easy, and for those of us who have made substantial mistakes that earned us the designation convicted felon, life can be more challenging. That is true. Likewise, if you think it's going to be hard, it will be. On the other hand, if you believe you are just as deserving as anyone else to enjoy the fruits of good choices, then those fruits will find you more quickly. Simply put, you get what you expect. Stepping out of prison, I expected to get positive consequences from positive choices. I got just that. And you can too. This book has circulated in places I've never been and to people I've never met. I hear reports from others who say that it has been an inspiration and a practical guide to getting back on their feet and finding their God-given right to a second chance. I know it works. I have lived it. The most important thing that I've learned over this incredible period is that our history does not create our destiny. Read, share, apply, and never forget that every choice has a consequence. Choose wisely. Chuck Gallagher. Acknowledgments. As I look back at the more than 12 years since I began writing this book, I have come to understand that life is a journey, taken with many players, some playing a small role and others featured as stars. To those who have crossed my path but are not mentioned here, let me say, thank you. The words you uttered in kindness or those that seem harsh were for my benefit, although at the time I may not have thought so. I know better now. First, without the help of my friend Mary Otta and the outstanding team Millie Brown at Brown Books has assembled, this book would not have come into reality. Mary has been a contributing writer, helping me tap into the emotion associated with my experience. Her insight and the connection that we have make it easy to work together. Thanks to all at Brown Books for their leadership and guidance. Thanks also to Word Music Group, Inc. for permission to use the lyrics of Trust His Heart. Robert Buck Arrington, you befriended me, took care of me, taught me, and inspired me. I would never have thought my cellmate in prison would have such an impact, but each time I deliver my presentation, I mention you. And through that, I thank you. You made my incarceration bearable and converted what could have been a nightmare into a powerful learning experience. The following people I can never repay, but each of you saw value in the person, Chuck Gallagher, when I obviously didn't see value in myself. To Lynn Nichols, Jerry Stevens, Donald Smith, Brightsey Stroud, Doris Avey, Annie Mae Avey, and Drusilla Gallagher, I thank you for helping me. In life, it is difficult to repay a debt of kindness. I hope that through my speaking and writing, I can help others, and that by doing so, I will be paying the debt I owe each of you. Paying it forward is powerful, and because of your help and guidance, I'm afforded that opportunity. To my ex-wife and wonderful mother of my children, Gina, I am truly sorry for the pain I caused you. I know that your life is different because of the choices I made. However, I am thankful that we came together in love, and the product of that love has been our 2 sons, Rob and Alex. Your kindness allowed me to have the opportunity to become a father, something I went without during my childhood. I may not have been a great father by many standards, but I have done the best I know how, considering the circumstances. To my 2 sons, you are the reason I am here. When all was lost in prison and I felt there was nothing to live for, I thought of you. I am proud of the men you have become. I am sure that looking back, you may have wanted a different dad, but one thing I know for sure is that you could never find a dad who loves you more. Thank you for being who you are, and know that you have the power to overcome any obstacle placed before you. That's in your genes. Lastly, to my loving wife, Deb, I don't know where to start. You have been there as a support and sounding board. You've offered a kind touch when needed and moved me in the direction of my dreams. I know there are times that my weakness may have been a bit much to bear, yet you have been there with me, knowing that this is a spiritual journey. Thank you for your love, for being there, and for your support in the journey thus far. I look forward to the journey continuing. Chapter 1. The end is the beginning. On the day I took 23 steps into prison, I did not recognize all the choices that resulted in this consequence. By the time I took 23 steps out of prison, my understanding had deepened. Writing this book led me to 23 insights about turning negative choices into positive results. I offer my story to remind you and me that our prisons are often self-inflicted. All my efforts and actions had led to this point. What should have been 15 years of solid success was, well, nothing of the kind. Rather, I was about to be marked with a distinction I would likely carry for the rest of my life. It was the continuation of a learning process that would have profoundly positive benefits, but I couldn't see them right then. At the moment the alarm rang that early October morning, I could think of very little other than what was going to happen in a few short hours. I had packed the night before for this journey. What I was allowed to take was meaningless, mostly the clothes on my back. By that time, I really didn't have anything. The car I normally drove belonged to the company, so I turned it in as I resigned from my job. I had no other choice. I was now unemployed and had no clue what opportunity for employment I would find after I completed the next phase of my life. My marriage was shot. We had been separated for several years with little hope of reconciliation. I guess there is a time when both parties know that it's over, even if they don't say so. Fortunately, my children still love their daddy. My path was clouded in mystery for me and for my kids. That caused me concern because I didn't know how they would deal with it. I owned no home, and what few possessions I had were meager and without value. Going from wealth to its utter opposite was never something I anticipated. At this stage of life, possessions were of little consequence. For so long in my life, my identity was defined by my career. Now I had no career. And my identity? Well, I had no idea. I recall my last weekend, which was spent with my children, being as normal as possible. I wanted to milk every last moment from that time. My mission was to be near them, to touch them, to let them know they were loved. They knew me as one person, and I was getting ready to be another. They seemed to have a good time during our last weekend together. Even though we had a great time, when I looked into their eyes, I could tell they were concerned. They didn't know what to expect either, and weren't even sure what to ask me in order to make them feel better. All I could remember was the love I saw in their eyes as I said goodbye that weekend, and the sadness I felt as I drove away. My best friend in the world was scurrying around that morning trying to get ready. She was to take me on this new journey, and if there was any day that being late was not an option, today was one of those days. Still, I felt like dragging my feet. Up to this point, for the most part, I had always felt in control, always able to direct my destiny. Willing my fate had seemed natural. Well, I had manifested a destiny all right, just not the one I consciously had wanted. "Are you ready to go?" she asked. I wanted to answer, "No, but what choice do I have?" Instead, I said, "Sure." She gave me a hug, one that I wished would have lasted forever, and we proceeded out into the chill of the morning. She drove. I could have, in fact. She offered to let me, but I needed the time to reflect, to enjoy the beauty of my surroundings one last time. Besides, she tended to drive slower, and I was in no rush to get to my destination. Even 10 years later, I can remember that morning vividly and how I was thinking, slow down. We didn't talk much that morning. Being a gregarious person, I tended to chatter a bit, but not this day. I think I was caught in an emotional abyss. I didn't know what to feel. Normally confident and focused, that day I was unsure of who I was and what lay ahead. I seemed to have lost my identity, and that feeling was uncomfortable, if not downright scary. Sometimes in life we face life-changing events. This was certainly going to be one. The only question was, what kind of outcome lay ahead? As we pulled into the entrance gate, I reached to hand my papers to the man in uniform. With a certain look of disdain, he glanced my way and gave my companion clear and distinct instructions where to go. We pulled away slowly, and yet, far too quickly, we arrived at my final destination. As I opened the passenger door, everything seemed to change. Everything was in slow motion, as if to etch this experience in my memory. I took my first steps into this new life. Visions of my family filled my heart and mind. They seemed lost to me. I took more steps with thoughts of my ruined career, yet more steps with a strong sense that I literally had nothing. On the 23rd step, I extended my hand, opened the door, and took my first step into federal prison. As I walked toward the entrance, I was Chuck Gallagher, a person some from my community would have, at one time, called a somebody. As I walked through the door, I became 11-642-058, a convicted felon, a person most people would call a nobody. We all have many rivers to cross as we journey through life, but this one left me wondering how I would ever find my way back to who I was and who I would become. For me, this was bottom, rock bottom. By stripping away in a very public way an identity founded on ego, pride, and illusion, I was embarking on a new experience with an uncertain outcome. I would never in my wildest dreams have conceived that in 5 short years I could completely destroy my life. As a tax principal in a CPA firm in the mid-'80s, I exuded success. I had been published in national tax publications, testified before the United States House Ways and Means Committee on tax legislation, and become an instructor to CPAs in 30 states. In some ways, the success seemed to come easily. Not that it didn't require work, but work was not an issue for me. Having been reared poor by most standards, I was taught at an early age that anything worth having was worth working toward. Had I been showered with my desires, I would not have been the person that I became. My rearing taught me the value of work and accomplishment. What I was fortunate to accomplish in my career came with hard work and a desire to succeed. My father died when I was 2 years old. As a young child being reared by my mother, I vividly recall her telling me, "Son, don't ever let your circumstances hold you back. You can be somebody." I always remembered her words, but I find myself wondering how we ever survived on my mother's meager income. Somehow we did, and I never recall going without anything of substance. My mother always seemed to be able to manifest what we needed just in time. My mother's heart was pure, and her love for me was deep. Little did she know, and certainly I had no clue, that the statement or affirmation she spoke to me would have a profound effect in the future. You can be somebody. A powerful statement, but at depth it implied that I was nobody. Looking back, I see one thing crystal clear, what being somebody means. One thing that we all learned in the College of Business was the power of leverage. For example, we learned quickly that if you buy the biggest house you can barely afford, 2 fundamental things should happen. Your income will increase and the value of your home should increase. Therefore, as your equity increases, so does your power to use leverage to buy more. Some call this the American dream. I now see it as a potential recipe for disaster. As a quick learner, I understood the power of leverage to gain greater physical possessions. I also found that successful people wanted to be surrounded by other successful people, and that the measure of success is often gauged by surface appearance and possessions. Your dress, your automobile, your home, and its location were all measures of success and value. And make no mistake, I wanted to be on that fast track to success. Not long after the birth of my first child, I received a call from my local banker asking if there was a problem. Their records showed that I was behind in my house payment. Not 1 month, but 2. The truth was, I was behind. In fact, I was what some would call overextended and underfunded. In other words, I couldn't comfortably pay my bills. And what was worse, the financial community was starting to realize that. What a disaster for someone who made his living helping others with their money. During our lives, we will all be faced with temptation many times. How we respond to temptation determines the measure of a man. I did not respond well. Through a series of choices, I set into motion the outcome that I took 23 steps to experience. I committed fraud. I stole money. I had a need. I had to make the house payment or risk losing favor in the financial community. As a trustee of a client, I had an opportunity to divert funds without anyone being immediately aware. I could rationalize my action by calling my theft a loan. My response to temptation was theft. Of course, at the time, I didn't call it theft. On the contrary, by paying back the loan with interest, I rationalized that not only was it a loan, but it was a new and valuable source of financing. I could further perpetuate the successful illusion I was so carefully creating. I took more. I lived at that time in what seemed a parallel universe. I was making choices that brought about legitimate success, yet at the same time, I lived in this shadow existence, making choices that ultimately brought about my downfall. Every choice generates consequences. The outcomes of the choices we make can be extraordinarily positive or extremely negative. The one fact we must all live by is that we will reap what we sow. The consequences of our choices may not be manifest immediately, but we will harvest the outcome of our choices and actions. That 23rd step, propelling me into federal prison, was proof positive to me that there is a consequence for every action. My own actions got me there. This book is not about white-collar crime, theft, or lying, though I was guilty of all of them. More important than the crime are the prisons we can find ourselves in, most created by our own actions. The real challenge is how we escape those chains that bind us. How do we move past negative behaviors and create an environment that reflects true success? When I was forced to admit my crimes, some 4 years after they began, that started a new and very different chapter in my life, one that I'm living today. That chapter didn't unfold to success immediately. Rather, the process of change was long and arduous. I was blessed with many teachers, most of whom cut me no slack, but all of whom saw more humanity and value in me than I obviously saw in myself. One of my first teachers was a businessman in my community who gave me my first job after my career as a CPA had been destroyed by my self-inflicted sabotage. To this day, I'm not sure why he took the risk. On a spiritual level, I believe that everything happens for a reason. He accepted the role of mentor, teacher, and earthly angel. He believed in me when few around me would. There were no handouts. He cut me no slack. Quite to the contrary, this angel was tough. In fact, I'd say he was the toughest person for whom I ever worked. Yet he and 2 other mentors, along with my family, allowed me to make full restitution to those from whom I had stolen money. The act of honestly admitting what I had done and accepting the consequences of those actions was critical to making any worthwhile change. While paying people back was significant, it didn't change what I had done and the pain I had caused. Those scars are permanent. Time in prison seemed to move in slow motion, as if to allow me all the time necessary to evaluate my actions, my choices, and my behavior, and learn. If I had to be there, surely there should be an outcome worth the time. While I didn't know what the outcome would be, one thing I was committed to was remaining open to believing that God's plan for my life could rise even from this lowly place, if only I were willing to learn, grow, and receive. 11 months after I entered prison, I took 23 steps out. Leaving the confines of regular prison to enter a halfway house was a profound first step. the awe of being placed back into mainstream society, even if that meant finishing my sentence in a halfway house, was inspiring. The loss of freedom, the loss of contact, and the isolation that comes from being incarcerated are significant. Those first steps brought a heartfelt joy. In order to transition to a halfway house, I had to have a job. Because of the seeds I had planted with my former employer from 1991 onward, I was fortunate to be considered for reemployment. I was given the opportunity to make a living in sales on straight commission. What I did with that opportunity was directly a result of the choices I made. Each inmate was required to notify the halfway house of their location and of every movement made during the day. I was happy to comply. The opportunity to rebuild my life was far too precious. No mistakes or bad choices could be tolerated. My past choices had not served me well. So this new opportunity gave me a chance to change the course of my life. Within 8 months, after taking some 23 steps out of that prison door, I was recognized for the choices I had made and offered the chance to take a management role. I had no expectation that this would happen, but accepted with gratitude the opportunity placed before me. As spiritual beings, whether we admit to it or not, we create our reality. The multitude of choices made each day following my release from prison created the opportunity I was to receive. My abundance and prosperity continued to multiply. Within 3 months of my re-entry into management, I was presented another promotion, Sales Management Supervisor of 2 states. Never in my wildest dreams could I have predicted that 1 year from my prison release, I would be managing a $6 million sales organization. A clear pattern was beginning to emerge. Choices made with integrity provided positive consequences. I was living proof of both sides of the choice issue. Choices made without integrity or ethics certainly yielded extraordinary negative consequences. Those choices made from an ethical framework with a foundation of integrity were yielding results far beyond my expectations. The road to recovery is not easy. Soon after I took my new job in sales, the area I was working in was ravaged by a powerful hurricane. Unless I was selling generators or roofing repair, no one wanted to buy a product while they were focusing on rebuilding their lives following a catastrophic event. Was I a victim of nature's wrath? How can I expect to succeed when there is devastation all around me? These were good questions, just not the right questions. Life is not about luck. It's about choices. I could have deviated from the path and experienced a less than certain outcome, or I could have done exactly what I chose and stayed focused on daily making the right choices that would pave a path to eventual recovery and prosperity. Can we change our lives? Yes. We're given the creative power to manifest our present and our future, just as we have created our past. I wish I had gotten this concept much earlier in life. Perhaps I could have been spared the pain associated with time in prison. We all face our prisons, and they are mostly self-inflicted. I took 23 steps and learned life is not about the prisons we find ourselves in. It's about breaking the chains that bind us so we can achieve growth, insight, and success